This is a worldwide brand-leading chili hot sauce. It's made by fermenting chilies. It's shelf-stable, it's delicious, it costs about £25 a litre to buy it. This is a homemade, homegrown fermented chili hot sauce. It's shelf-stable, it's even more delicious, and it cost me about 5p a litre to grow it and to make it. Let me show you how. Hello, welcome to English Country Life. Welcome to the garden. Welcome to making chili sauce. My name's Hugh, and today what I want to show you is how we make a fermented chili sauce with very little complexity, no fancy tools, no money expended. There are in the world a lot of chili sauces. Tabasco is one of the best known, but there's lots of others, Uncle Frank's and goodness knows how many brand names. Most of the best ones share one thing in common. They're a fermented sauce. And today I want to show you how you make a fermented sauce. It's really simple. It is, as it sounds, a bit like fermenting alcohol, but actually in reality it's a little bit more like making sauerkraut. And what it is, it's the action of a bacteria that converts some of the contents of your chili into a different flavour. How does it work? Well, it's very, very simple. What you do is you chop up some chilies and you put them in brine, a salt solution. What that salt solution does is it inhibits a lot of the bacteria that would normally cause those chilies to rot. But it doesn't affect a bacteria called the lactobacillus. The lactobacillus consumes sugars and a lot of the materials that in a chili and breaks them down. It creates a lactic acid and it alters and smooths the flavour of the chili. Once that's done, you can get rid of the brine if you want. So don't worry about the health implications of a lot of salt. You don't need to leave any salt in that. Some people do. We can come on to that. But when you buy a commercial hot sauce, right, it's shelf stable. You can pop it in a cupboard and use it when you want it. And that's what I wanted for our hot sauce. I didn't want to have to keep it in the fridge, etc. So in our hot sauce, we've added vinegar to the final product. And that vinegar, our homemade vinegar, keeps it shelf stable. Some people will add back a little bit of the brine to the final product to make it runny. For me, A, that can be too salty. B, that has health implications. And C, honestly, although the lactic fermentation does give off some acid, it's not enough acid to make the chili really safe to be shelf stable. So it does want refrigerating as a sauce. And that just is a hassle for us. And when I say we add a bit of vinegar to this, it's a splash. It's not much, but it just pushes that acidity up enough that the sauce becomes shelf stable. So our goal with all of this was to create a hot sauce that is entirely sourced from our small holding. We grow the chilies, we grow the apples, we make the cider vinegar. This sauce, everything in this sauce came from within 50 yards of where I'm sat. And it's every bit as good, if not better, than the commercial ones. So stay with us and let me show you how to make it.
We're going to be making two hot sauces. The first is with this chili. It's called Onivec. It's got a heat rating of around 90,000 Scovilles, so that's quite warm, but it still has a lot of flavour. They're a lovely long chili, and we use them in a lot of our dishes. To take the chilies off the branches is really, really easy. All you need to do is take a pair of scissors and just snip them away from the vines. The second sauce we're going to make is going to use Scotch bonnet chilies, and most people have heard of these, and they've got a reputation for being incredibly hot, and they've got a Scoville rating of 250,000 Scovilles, so roughly 3 times the Onivecs. They are much smaller and they're yellow in colour when they're ripe, and we once again are just going to snip them away from the branches to take them off the vine. Let's look at the ingredients we're going to use. We're going to use 800 grams of chilies in each bottle. We're going to use 2 bulbs of garlic and 2 shallots. We're then going to need 1 litre of water, and to that we're going to add 50 grams of salt. To spice things up, we've got some optional ingredients, and with the Scotch bonnets we're going to add some turmeric. With the Onivec chilies we're going to add some tomato powder, and we've got mustard seed too. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to add that 50 milligrams of salt to the 1 litre of water and spend a little bit of time getting it fully dissolved so we've got a great saline solution for the fermentation process. The next thing we're going to do is prepare the shallots. We're just going to top and tail them to begin with. And just like peeling an onion, the next thing we're going to do is take away that dead brown outer layer of skin. Now the shallots just add some wonderful depth of flavour to the fermented chilli sauce. It really does make a difference. Once that brown dead skin is removed, it's a case of finely slicing the shallots as best as we can. I'm watching Hugh very carefully with this knife at the moment because over time he has lost 1 or 2 tips of fingers with a knife. So once that's done, add it to a bowl, onto the next shallot. Next we need 2 full bulbs of garlic. Yes, we need all the cloves from 2 bulbs. I promise you it adds a lot of flavour. So we need to free all of the cloves from those bulbs, and then we can crack open that great flavour inside. To release the clove flavour, what we're going to do is we're going to take each clove one by one, top and tail it, just like you did the shallots, and get rid of those little pieces. They'll go in the compost bin for us because everything has a purpose. Then take the clove, put flat side on top and bang down hard. That partly crushes the clove, which we need for this recipe anyway, but it makes it very easy just to peel away that outer husk that we don't want. Once we've got all of the cloves peeled, we just scoop them up, pop them in the bowl with the shallots. The next part, we're going to start chopping the chilies, but we're going to take a precaution and wear nitrile gloves, and that's because chilies when they're chopped can secrete an oil. If you don't wash your hands thoroughly enough after chopping them and then rub your eye, for example, it can be very, very painful. So for us, we wear nitrile gloves, and then as soon as we finish handling the chilies, we'll just discard the gloves. Chopping the chilies doesn't need to be fancy either. Just take the tops off, we don't need those because that has a stalk on it, and roughly chop the chili itself and add it to the bowl with shallots and the garlic. Once all of those ingredients are in the bowl, we're just going to give it a little bit of a mix up, and that's so that as we add handfuls to the fermentation jars, we've got a little bit of everything being added. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to prepare 2 hot fermented chilli sauces today. What we've just shown you is the mixture for the Onivec chilli sauce. We're going to now look at the Scotch bonnet chilli sauce, and the only difference so far in the ingredients we've looked at are that you replace the Onivec chilies with Scotch bonnet chilies. These are easier to chop. You only need to take the stalk top off. They're so small they don't need roughly chopping, and they can be added to your shallots and garlic in a bowl and mixed up, ready for putting into the jars. Let's just have a quick recap on those ingredients before we start adding things to the fermenting jar. For the fermentation process, a clip-top jar is absolutely perfect. The fermentation does produce a lot of gas, so you need a lid which is held down very firmly, and clip-top jars do that. First thing we're going to do is start putting the shallots, the garlic and the chilies into the jar. Once the jar is approximately half full, we're going to add some optional additional ingredients for more flavour. To the en avec hot chilli sauce, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of black mustard. This makes it a little bit spicier. We're also going to add quite an intense flavour from tomato powder. We don't need a lot because it's made from dehydrated tomatoes, and all we're going to add is 2 teaspoons of that powder. We've filled the jar to just below the neck of the clip top. What we need to do now is add the saline solution, so we're going to pour as much of that litre in as possible to cover all of the ingredients which are inside the jar, so it's full to the same level, so just below the neck of the clip top. For the fermentation process to work properly, all of the ingredients need to be in the saline solution, so they must be weighted down. And we have a very simple and cheap solution to that. No need to buy specialist weights. Just take a polythene bag. We actually use pour and store bags because they're very robust. Pop it into the neck of the jar. Pour in some water which is sufficient to weight it down so that you can fill up all the room that's available. Pack the bag into that space and close the clip top lid. Very, very simple, very cheap. The process of filling the jars for the Scotch bonnet hot sauce is exactly the same as for the en avec hot sauce. We're going to change a couple of the optional ingredients though. Instead of adding 2 teaspoons of tomato powder, we're adding 1 teaspoon of turmeric. Instead of adding black mustard, we're adding white mustard seeds. We're only adding 1 teaspoon, but it should taste absolutely beautiful. There's one final thing to show you about the fermentation process. We mentioned at the beginning that it produces gas as the fermentation progresses. So it's important 2 or 3 times a day just to lift the lid and release that excess gas, just so it doesn't build up too much and cause too much pressure. If you look carefully when I lift the lid, you'll see some bubbles rising to the surface. This should be carried on for at least 2 weeks, and then the fermentation should be complete.
2 full weeks have gone past and our chilies have fermented. So today we're going to change them from being big lumps of chili into a sauce. How do we do it? Well, step 1 is we strain off the brine. Step 2, we put them into a liquidizer, blitz them to a smooth paste. Step 3, pass them through a very fine sieve just to get rid of any seeds or bits of skin that can't properly liquidize. And at step 4 we have a choice. A lot of recipes will tell you to add a little bit of the brine liquid back in to make it a sauce rather than the paste, at the consistency you like. I'm never convinced that that salt mixture is strong enough to act as a preservative if you want to keep them in a cupboard. Absolutely fine if you want to keep your chili sauce in a fridge, but I want to keep mine on a shelf. A lot of you have probably seen pictures of our pantry. We have a lot of goods to store, not that much fridge room. So what I'm going to do, once I've blitzed the chilies and passed them through a sieve, is I'm going to add vinegar to them to make it into a sauce, and that will up the acidity enough to act as a preservative, and then the sauce is perfectly shelf stable. After that, we need to bottle the sauce. But before I bottle it, I'm going to heat it up. Just get it up to the boiling point for 5-10 minutes. Why? Well, the vinegar that we make is a live vinegar culture, and you may be able to see at the bottom some white material there. The white material is mother of vinegar. It's a live vinegar culture, but the other thing is there is live bacterial action going on in our chilies. That gives off gas, and you've probably all heard of the sort of homebrew stories of people who had exploding bottles of beer in the kitchen. And the last thing I want is an exploding bottle of hot sauce. So by heating up the sauce after we've added the vinegar, we effectively pasteurize it. We kill off any of the beneficial but residual bacteria that are left in the sauce, and we sterilize it. And that way there'll be no gas given off when it's inside the bottle. So those are the steps we're going to go through. Let's get on. Here we go then. We'll open up our sauce, we'll remove the little plastic bag, And that little plastic bag has been keeping our chilies underneath the brine mixture. And it's just a matter of pour off all that brine. The smell is absolutely amazing. Really, really nice. Next job then is to spoon the chilies along with the garlic, the shallots, the mustard seed into the blender. Just before I blitz the chilies, I am going to put a little splash of cider vinegar into the blender. Not for preserving at this point, but actually just because a bit of liquid in the blender with the solids really helps them pulp down. I've blended that as smooth as I can get it. What I'm doing now is just pouring it into a very fine sieve, not all of it, and I'm going to push it through that sieve with a spoon. You'll notice I'm wearing gloves. Again, this amount of chilies is a very, very hot prospect, and I don't want to get any risk at all of getting this amount of chili on eyes or any other portion of my anatomy come to that. Here's the important point. Keep working the sauce. What you can see is it almost looks like a dry paste in the sieve now, but if you keep pushing that with the back of the spoon, more and more comes through the sieve and it thickens the sauce. You end up with getting a really good consistency. If you just let the drips come through, you'll get a very runny sauce. But if you work the paste through the fine sieve, you're going to get a thick, delicious, almost creamy consistency of sauce. And that needs to look really dry by the time you've finished. There we go. We've got a thick liquid and a dry paste. The dry paste can be incorporated into a chili con carne or something like that, but it's not of use to the way I like my sauce. No harm in including it if you want to. But I'm going to have a lovely smooth hot sauce that we can just put a few drops on food that we like.
As before, this part of the process is exactly the same for the Scotch bonnet hot sauce as it is for the Onivec hot sauce. So let's whiz through this segment and then we can get on with the next stage.
The next job is to bring the sauce up to the boil and keep it there for about 10 minutes just to pasteurise it, kill off any of the beneficial bacteria that might cause fermentation to continue, might cause gas to be given off. Once it's hit a gentle simmer, turn the gas all the way down, give it a good stir, and we'll just cook it through and then leave it to cool a little bit. While my sauce is cooking through, I've put my bottles in a pan of hot water just for a few minutes to heat the glass up. That's for two reasons. One is if you put hot sauce into cold glass, it can cause the glass to shatter. The other reason is that heating the inside of the bottle with boiling water will sterilise that bottle before we add the sauce. If you thought your sauce was a little bit too runny when you started the heating process, don't worry, it definitely thickens up while it cooks through. And you will find that what you end up at the end is something about the consistency of soup, somewhere around there. It's that sort of thickness. Not massively thick, and if you want it thinner, by all means add a little bit more vinegar, which will only help with the preserving, in order to get the consistency you like. But I like it so that it doesn't run off the plate, but it is thin enough to pour.
Once again, pasteurising the Scotch bonnet hot sauce is exactly the same as the Onivec hot sauce. So we can just whiz through this process once more so we can look at the finished product. And here they are, the finished bottles, incredibly colourful and incredibly tasty.
That is how you make a fermented Tabasco type hot sauce, like the commercial hot sauces. How hot is it? As hot as you want. Choose the right chilli, you choose the right strength. If you use a Fresno, the sort of green and red chilies often sold in Tesco's and other supermarkets, it'll be milder than a Tabasco. If you use a medium strength chili like an Apache, you'll get something about the sort of strength of a Tabasco sauce. Cayenne, that's a good one to use for Tabasco strength. Use a hotter chili as we have there, that's an Onivec, and that comes out 90,000 Scovilles. That'll give you something the strength of some of the commercial hot sauces that are out there. If you use pure Scotch bonnets, like the yellow ones that we've used, you'll get something blisteringly hot if that's your choice. If you're enjoying this kind of content, can you spare us 5 seconds? Give us a thumbs up down below. If you'd like to see other preserving videos, tell us in the comments. Someone suggested they'd love to see how to make jerky recently. We make a lot of jerky, venison, beef and others. If you want to see that, let us know. We're happy to do other things. Do you want to see how to make brown sauce, like sort of HP sauce? Do you want to see how to make pickles? Do you want to see chutneys? Do you want to see jams? Do you want to see jellies? Do you want to see marmalades? You tell us, we'll make it for you. If you want to see those kind of content, hit the subscribe button down there and hit the bell next to it, and you'll hear every time we upload a new video. But whatever you do, come back and see us soon. Take care.